Okay, guys, this video is going to be about 8.5, which is about trig inverses and how to use it to solve angles. Now, let's first learn about trig inverse, okay? So just like how the inverse of adding is subtracting, the inverse of multiplying is dividing, and the inverse of something square is basically be square rooting it. Our tangent, sine, and cosine also has inverses. The inverse of sine will be it will be arc sine, which will be the sine with a -1. We call it arc sine. Okay, or you can call it the inverse of sine. It doesn't really matter. The inverse of cosine will be arc cosine, or you can just, call it inverse cosine. It's fine as well, okay? And the opposite of tangent will be arc tangent. And it's okay if you call it the inverse tangent, okay? On the calculator, it will be those bottoms with those -1 signs. Those are the inverses of sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, how is this trig inverses useful? Well, it could be useful when we solve angles, but let's first look at how can we use this to solve for x in these equations right here, okay? It says, find the measurement of the missing angle rounded to the nearest degree. Now, first of all, let's look at what this question is basically asking for, okay? It says tangent of what must it equal to 0.75? It's basically saying that if we have a triangle and our reference angle right here, let's say it's the x, what must x be so that the opposite over adjacent of my tangent will give us the ratio of 0.75. This is what the question is asking for. Now, in order to figure this out, we have to use our inverses right here. So, in order to cancel out the tangent on the left side, so we can just have the x left, just like how when we add, we use subtract. When we multiply, we use divide on those one-side equations. When we have tangent, we use its inverse, which is going to be arc tangent. So we're going to do the inverse tangent or the arc tangent on both sides. So it would look something like this. On the left side, we will take the inverse tangent of tangent x equals, and then whatever we do on one side, we do it to the other side. So the other side will also be tangent inverse, but of 0.75. Now, on the left side, it will cancel it out. The inverse tangent and tangent will cancel out, becomes just x. And on the other side, you will have tangent inverse of 0.75. Now, in order to figure out this value, you do have to use the calculator. You have to go search Decimal's scientific calculator, and that will be the calculator that you have to use for this lesson. So let me pull it up and show you what it looks like. Now, if you go ahead and look at this right here, this is what the Decimal scientific calculator will look like, and this is probably what you would use in any of your tests. So what you're going to do is at first, you're going to change right here. If you see I'm clicking right here, radians degree, you have to change your mode to the degree mode because you want your answer to be a degree. So this is why it has to be in the degree mode. Then to find the inverse tangent, you're going to click on functions, and then you're going to click on the tangent of the -1 power right here. That's the inverse of tangent. Now what we say is that we want the inverse tangent of 0.75. So you're going to go to main, and then going to click in 0.75. And now it's going to give us a number right here. It says it's 36.87 if you round it to the nearest hundred place. This is the value or the degree that we want for our answer. So 36.87. So let's go here. So it was 36.87. But our answers here said that we want to round it to the nearest degree. Well, this rounded to the nearest degree will be 37 degrees. What this answer means is that if you have your reference angle here as 37 degrees, then your opposite over adjacent will be the ratio of 0.75. This is basically what are you doing with this question. Okay, now let's do the same thing with cosine. Now, in order to solve for x here, I need to cancel out the cosine on the left side, right? So I'm going to cancel out by using the inverse cosine. So I'm going to go ahead and take the inverse cosine on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now on the left side, you will see the inverse cosine and the cosines cancels out. It will leave you with x. on the right side, you have to use a calculator to figure out what the inverse cosine of 0.3 is. So I'm going to pull up the calculator again. Well, I'm going to clear everything out. I'm going to go to my functions, click on the inverse cosine, and the degree here was 0.3. 0.3, so I go to the main, click 0.3, and this will give me 72.54. Now the question does say I have to round it to the nearest degree, so 72.54 rounded to the nearest degree will be 73, because the 5 rounds everything up. So it'll be 73 degrees. So my x here will be 73 degrees. What this answer means is that if you have, let me draw a new triangle. If you have a triangle right here with 73 as the reference angle, then if you do the cosine of it, meaning adjacent over hypotenuse, your ratio here will be this 0.3. And this happens when your, reference angle here is 73 degrees. This is the meaning behind this question. Now, for the other two questions, I'm not going to explain this meaning, but it's the same idea, okay? We're going to quickly solve C and D here. So, to find the sine of x equals 0.5, to find my x, I'm going to take the inverse sine on both sides, which I will do sine inverse of sine x equals to sine inverse of 0.5. Now, realize that on the left side, this cancels, give you x. And on the other side, the sine inverse of 0.5, let's see what will it be. So we clear everything out. We go to function, we click on sine inverse, and then we go to main function, put in 0.5. This will give us my degree here as exactly 30 degrees. Okay. Now, all these questions, we wrote out inverse, on both sides. But technically, on these type of questions, if you know that there's cosine here, you can just go ahead and just skip this step because, you're basically essentially doing the inverse on both sides. But the inverse will cancel it out on the left side. So you really just have to do the inverse on the right side. Okay? This is when you get used to it. But at the beginning, please do this step just to know what are you doing. Okay? Now let me cut in the calculator. What's the cosine inverse of 4/9? So I'm going to go to my calculator, clear everything out, go to function, click in cosine, and then we click, what is the number here? 4/9. So we go 4 divided by 9. Now this will give me my degree here at 63.6, which if I round it to the nearest degree, I have to round up because of the 6. It's over 5. So it'll give me 64 degrees. So my degree here will be 64 degrees. Okay. Now, let's use these to find my missing variables, okay? My missing x. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at example 2. It says some steps to find the missing angle is this. So you're going to first label the sides that you have based on your reference angle. So right here, my reference angle is the x. Now I'm going to label my sides. Now, the 4 here is the opposite. The other one that I have right here is going to be the adjacent. Now, with these questions that you're solving for angles, you only have to label the sides that you have to use, okay? So, which is the opposite and adjacent. Now, you're going to pick the ratio that you can use from the SOHCAHTOA. So, what you're going to do is that you're going to look at all the sides you have and then figure out, using the sides you have, which one of these followings can I use? Well, look at the sides you have. I have an opposite and adjacent. Now, which of these ratio that I can use with opposite and adjacent? If you look closely, it will be the TOA because tangent is opposite over adjacent, which is exactly what we have, and it's the only one that we can use because we do not have the hypotenuse that's required for the other two. Okay, which obviously you can solve for the hypotenuse and then use these ratio, but it's going to be an extra step for us to do, and we don't have to do it if we're just trying to find this x right here. Now, let's go ahead and set everything up, okay? So, if we're using tangent, then we know we're finding the tangent of x, right? And we know that the tangent of x is going to be opposite over adjacent, which is 4/3. This is what we've done in the previous lesson. Now, if we have this, it will be very easy for us to find out what is my missing angle measurement right here. Well, we do the same thing from A, B, C, and D. We're going to take the inverse tangent of both sides, so we can cancel out the tangent and find what the x is. Okay, So on the left side, this cancels, give us x. On the right side, the tangent inverse of 4/3, let's see what it is. So we go ahead and go to our calculator, go to functions, go to the inverse tangent, and then click in 4/3. This will give us our angle measurement as 53 degrees if we round it to the nearest degree. So this means my angle measurement here will be 53 degrees. See how in this question, you can find the angle measurement here with only 2 sides given to you. Now, you do have to carefully to pick which one of these trigonometry ratio you use based on what type of sides you have. Sometimes you cannot use SOA because you don't have the hypotenuse. Sometimes you cannot use CA because you don't have the adjacent. So you have to look at what you have to pick what you use to figure out your angle measurement. Let's take a look at another question, okay? So we're going to follow the steps. So here is our reference angle, x. Now, let's look at what type of sides we have. Now, the 5 right here is the adjacent because it's a side that's next to this reference angle here that's not the hypotenuse. Okay, now 13 is my hypotenuse because it's a side that's opposite of my right angle. So this is my hypotenuse. Now, let me write down SOHCAHTOA. Looking at SOHCAHTOA, we know that the only ones that I can use with only adjacent and hypotenuse will be the CA, right? Because cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse, which is the only ones that we have. So let's use this to find my measurement of x. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm trying to find the cosine x of cosine x is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 5/13. Okay. Once I decide to use cosine, I put my reference angle right here, and then I put the equals to the adjacent over hypotenuse because I'm using cosine. Now, in order to find my x here, I'm going to take the cosine inverse of both sides. Once I do this, everything will cancel out on the left side except the x, which I put right here. And then on the right side, the cosine inverse of 5/13. Let's see what you get. So pull up your calculator, click on function, click on inverse cosine, and then we put 5/13. This will give me my degree rounded to a nearest whole number as your favorite number, which is going to be 67. Okay, 67. So my angle measurement here will be 67 degrees. And this is my x value that we found using cosine. Okay, let's continue on the next question, part B. Now, part B, we're going to look at a reference angle right here, which is theta. Now, look at what type of angles we have. Now, the first one we have right here, that's right across from it, we know this is the opposite because this opposite is always the side that's opposite away from my reference angle. My 6 right here will be the hypotenuse because it's a side that's right across away from my right angle. So this is the hypotenuse. Now, out of the SOHCAHTOA right here, which one of these that we can use when we only have opposite and the hypotenuse? The answer is going to be sine because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so now with this in mind, let's set it up. So we are trying to find the sine of theta, and this is equal to opposite 4 over hypotenuse 6. Now, we're trying to find the theta, the angle measurement. So we're going to cancel out the sine by doing sine inverse on both sides. Okay. On the left side, the sine inverse and sine cancels out, leaving you with the theta. On the left side, on the right side, the sine inverse of 4/6. Let's calculate it. So we're going to clear everything out. Go to function, click sine inverse, and you put 4/6 in it. This will give you, if you round it to the nearest whole number, that will give you 42 degrees. So you're going to go back and put this as 42 degrees. Okay. Let's move on to question C here. So question C here, similar idea. We're going to look at a reference angle, which is y. Now look at what type of angle, what type of side do we have. Now the first side we have is going to be the opposite because it's the side that's opposite away from my reference angle. So the 6 right here is the opposite. Now, The A right here is my adjacent because it's a side that's right next to my reference angle that's not the hypotenuse, because I know this one right here is the hypotenuse because it's right away from my right angle. So this makes this A must be the adjacent. So now let's go ahead and set everything up. Now, which one of these SOHCAHTOA do I use if I only have the O and the A? Well, this means I have to use the TOA or the tangent, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. So let's go ahead and set it up. So we're doing the tangent of y equaling to opposite over adjacent, which will be 6 over 8. Now, in order to figure out my y, I have to do inverse tangent on both sides. On the left side, everything will cancel out, leaving you with just y. On the right side, you will put in your calculator what's my tangent inverse of 6 over 8. So let me pull up my calculator, clear everything out, go to functions, click on inverse tangent, and then I put in, what's the number again? 6 over 8. This will give me my angle measurement right here. If I round it to the nearest degree, it will be 37 degrees. So I'm going to go back and put that my y here will be 37 degrees. Okay, now it's the last one. So same thing right here though. Now, on this one, my degree, on this one, as you can see, I have all three sides. I have opposite, I have my opposite, my hypotenuse, and my adjacent. This is my hypotenuse, this is my opposite, and this is my adjacent. I have all sides. Now, if you have all sides, this technically means that you can use any of these SOHCAHTOAs. You can use any of these SOHCAHTOAs of your choice. Now, whatever you want to use, it's totally fine. It will give you the same result. So let me do sine then, okay? I know that sine is going to be, my sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite is 24, hypotenuse is 25. Now, if I'm going to find this, if I'm going to cancel out the sine, I have to do the inverse sine on both sides. On the left side, it cancels out and leave me with alpha. And on the other side, I have to do sine inverse of 24 over 25. Now, if I go ahead and pull up the calculator and put this in, clear everything out, sine inverse of 24 over 25 will be, rounded to the nearest degree, it will be 74 degrees. And this is going to be my angle measurement. Now, if you decide to do this with tangent and cosine, it will give you the same answers as long as you're following the steps correctly. And that's going to be the end of this video. Please ask me if you have any questions.